Well, hello and welcome to this episode of The Terri Cole Show. I want to start this episode with a question. How has your sense of emotional safety and security been? I want to say lately, but what I really want to say is in the past almost year. Have you noticed a difference or a change in how safe you feel just going through your life? Because I can tell you from the emails that I've gotten from so many of you are feeling this amplified sense of being unsafe for a lot of incredibly good reasons. So, in this episode, which is episode number, what is the number? Hold on. It is 279. I'm going to be giving you some tips to strengthen your emotional safety and security, and you can get those and a beautiful guided meditation that I created to also help you strengthen that. That is in the download. And to get that, you just go to terricole.com/279. Okay, so let's move into the meat of today's episode, which is why are we all feeling so unsafe? Now, there are many in our society, especially people of color, who feel unsafe and a heightened sense of lack of safety all of the time for very good reasons. As we've seen in the past, I want to say 400 years, but especially it's become amplified and way more visible in the last year for sure. With the George Floyd murder, Breonna Taylor, there are so many incidences, even before what ended up happening at the Capitol in DC. This violence, this sense of chaos, this sense of lack of justice. And that certainly creates a lack of security. But I think that for many of us, especially if you already felt unsafe, the world being so unstable, surviving a global pandemic, all of those things have really taken their toll. And many of us also had personal dramas and tragedies and experiences and sickness and death and things going on like that, where you had people in the hospital where you couldn't go visit them before they passed away. I mean, all of these things that are so painful and make it so difficult to have closure. I was going through, many of you know, my mom went through a pretty bad cancer experience during most of last year, and she's on the mend now, thank God. But I mean, I felt so threatened by that experience of potentially losing her. She had anal cancer, which was very brutal, I'd say, and the treatment I thought was going to kill her more than the cancer itself, or just as much. And neither did, thank goodness. But I was already, my reality, having a parent be sick, that already changes your reality. Our reality was already flipped on its head long before now, right? We're talking about almost a full year when you think about it is a year since the pandemic started, and we were aware that we needed to start living differently. Think about it, a year and a month ago, nobody was wearing a mask, right? And then suddenly it became the thing that you had to wear a mask. So those changes all, for our own protection, can feel incredibly threatening. But let's go back to sort of the basis of emotional security to begin with. How can we create more emotional security in our relationships? Because, from a therapeutic point of view, when we talk about emotional security, a lot of times we're really talking about, emotional safety. We're talking about in our relationships. Do we have relationships that are emotionally safe? Meaning, you can trust the person, you can have a disagreement, and even a fight, let's say, without saying terrible things, without betraying the person's trust, without throwing something tender or something that they made themselves vulnerable to share with you, without throwing that in their face or using it against them. All of the things I just mentioned are things that create a lack of emotional safety within a relationship. And a lot of this stuff is learned behavior, of course. If you grew up in a family system where people fought dirty, but then they kind of got over it, you expect that a relationship is going to be a series of these experiences of closeness and then being far away, but being deeply wounded by the people who are supposed to love you the most and the people who you would like to make yourself the most vulnerable to. So how do we create more emotional safety in our relationships? Part of it is understanding the types of interactions that create a lack of safety, which is ineffective, dysfunctional communication is one of the biggest ones. So think about, rather than problem solving, think about having a conversation that goes, you never share anything with me, you're always like this, you're so selfish, right? All of this coming from an accusatory place. You never talk, you're so secretive, why are you like that? All of these absolutes, first of all, they're not true, right? Because nobody is always anything and never anything, because we're human beings and we're a mixed bag no matter who we are. But it's a way of making the other person wrong. And again, the problem solving that comes from there is none, right? Because that starts the ball rolling of, well, I don't tell you anything because I can't talk to you because you're like this, I shouldn't have said anything. I should have kept my mouth shut because, you can't be trusted because you'll use it against me or whatever it is that the person's saying. So you have to look into how can you safely express yourself really authentically and fully. Can you talk about where you're dissatisfied without blaming? Because the blame, shame, and guilt, that is such a block to trust in a relationship. And there's no way to problem solve when you know the other person is going to blame you, because it creates a perpetual state of fear. Both partners end up being in fear of that. So I think that the first thing we have to look at is close to home, right? Are you able to, in a safe relationship, you're able to share your insecurities, and your partner won't use that against you later. They won't make a case for themselves when they're trying to win a fight with you at some other point, using something that you shared with them in confidence against you. That is so, it is such a profound betrayal when that happens. So, I'll give you a little list in your downloadable guide so you can basically see what are the things that create an unsafe environment. Because when we think about what is safety, what does it actually mean? It's basically freedom from harm or danger, right? It is the actual state of being safe, right? It's a place that is free of harm or danger. And our most intimate relationships, we definitely need them to be safe spaces. If a couple is to grow, if love is to grow, if you as an individual are to grow, because there's nothing that stunts growth more than fear. And if you are perpetually in a state of emotional unsafety, taking risks is scary. What if your partner makes fun of you? What if your partner mocks you? What if it's all about control. And so therefore life can get very small, right? If we're in that type of a situation. So that's one thing that you're going to look at for yourself. How safe are your relationships? And we have to look at ourselves too. It isn't just looking at what our partner is doing, of course, because you are 50% of every relationship that you're in. And again, this is not just a romantic relationship thing. This could be a dance that you do with your sister, with your brother, with your best friend. Because if it is familiar to you, if you have this type of a blueprint, right, your unconscious mind, a downloaded blueprint as I would call it, that close relationships have these elements to them, you actually have to create a new blueprint. If you were raised in a home where vicious fighting, saying the meanest thing that you can think of to someone, humiliating the other person, doing anything to win an argument, a fight, if that was the norm, if you were humiliated as a child for speaking up or speaking out or disagreeing, you learn not to do those things. But it also is normalized in your mind that love and this type of pain and lack of safety go together. So they don't have to go together, but for a lot of people, they do. So some ideas of within the relationship, and then we'll talk about the world. Try to, again, there's got to be cooperation. There's got to be mutuality, but listening in a non-defensive way, because defensiveness just gets the ball rolling it is the biggest block to problem solving. And it's, one of my heroes, Dr. Harriet Lerner, says that defensiveness is the arch enemy of listening, because it is. If you're very defensive because you feel very blamed, know that that's a reaction, that you may be reacting defensively even when your partner's not blaming you. So we really have to look at our own side of the street, and we have to validate each other. We have to validate each other's feelings. You don't have to understand your partner's feelings. You don't have to agree with how they're feeling about something. It's not your job. If they say, I'm really bummed out, this thing happened on my work Zoom call today, and I really felt judged by this person, instead of trying to fix it and say, oh, I think you're being paranoid, they weren't judging you. Validate. That must have been hard. I'm really sorry that you had that experience today. Is there anything else you want to say about it? Create an opening so the person can have their experience and share it with you without feeling like you're going to try to fix them or fix it, or the worst thing is to take the other, to take the other person's side and make your feelings wrong. I also think that it's important that we're not holding on to the past with our partner. When we are angry about something and we have past hurts, why we need to mend them, why we need to transform them and really unpack them, understand them, is because if not, there's a tendency to ruminate about them, and it's almost like we're reliving those painful experiences again and again, and that is not great, right? That is the way that we sort of hold on to the past, and even if our partner is trying to change, we're basically not letting them change. And another way of creating safety and security and a secure connection is staying connected to your partner even when you're in conflict. You can actually stay connected, just putting a hand on a leg, holding hands, even if you're upset. But trust me, when you learn to effectively problem solve in your relationships, or do it better, because probably you know how, but it's always upping our game with these things if we're really looking for a safe, harmonious relationship. You can be angry and not be hateful, right? You can share how you feel. They cannot understand it and still care that you feel that way. I always think this in my own marriage. I doubt, probably half the time, I don't know that Vic understands why I feel the way I do. But I damn well expect that he cares about how I feel. And he does, right? So I expect that. And he expects the same. That if he's upset, he doesn't need to build a case to me about whether he should or shouldn't be upset, whether it has to do with me or not do with me. What matters is that he is. And because I love him, how he feels matters. And so we're moving the emphasis off the you against me, and it's us against the problem. It's us against the misunderstanding. It's us against the crappy communication or the acting out. And we've got to be able to be sorry. We've got to be able to be sorry. And I think that it's very easy when you are in a polarized situation or relationship to not want to be sorry, or to not want to be vulnerable and say you're sorry. So one other tip I have there is I want you to think about being sorry about the small things. If you're in a relationship where neither one of you apologizes often, or one of you is the designated apologizer and the other person never does, it's like, see if you can start with being sorry about small things. Oh, I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong time. I got the time wrong. It was actually 5:15. the more we normalize, and I don't mean being sorry for everything, and I don't mean saying I'm sorry as like, situational or societal lubricant. Not that, because we're not sorry when we're using it that way. I mean, taking responsibility for the small mistakes in the relationship. Even if he said, no, I think actually we did see this movie. And then I was like, no, we didn't. And then I look back at the movie and I go, oh my God, we did. And then I'll text him and be like, oh my God, you were right about that movie. We did see it. Sorry about that. He'll be like, oh, you don't have to be sorry. But being able to be sorry, all of these are ways of building this good faith that I talk about. We have this well of good faith that we want to build in our relationships, because then we have something to draw from when the shit hits the fan, when the chips are down, when you're in a global pandemic, and we need that well more than ever. And the last thing I want to say about this is that protecting yourself from overexposure to what is happening out there in the world. I'm not saying be uninformed. I'm not saying be to think that you shouldn't be part of the solution, that it's for other people to fix. I would love you to stay informed and be a part of the solution, but do it in a way that doesn't traumatize you. I read my news. I cannot watch it because they will show the same traumatizing clip over and over and over again. I can't deal with it once. I will read about it. Trust me, it gets in. I understand what's happening in the world. I read lots of things weekly, daily, monthly, and then I do watch shows that are less explicit. But that's just me. I'm an empath. I'm a highly sensitive person, which does not get me off the hook for needing to be a part of the solution for healing. I happen to live in the U.S., healing this nation. Maybe you need to heal your nation, but being a part of that is really important. But I can't be my best or do that if I'm endlessly traumatized all day long. So I think moving into being informed in a way that empowers you to act rather than makes you want to shut it all out, because not everyone has the luxury of doing that. So I want you to think about the way that you get your news, and we've got to turn off the tech at some point. We've got to say that's enough. Be really mindful of sleep hygiene and how to get a good night's sleep, taking care of yourself, nurturing yourself, being hydrated enough, doing the best that you can so that you can be good in your life for yourself and for the other people. This is how we create more emotional security and stability, is fixing it close to home and also not exposing ourselves to super toxic people all the time and or super traumatizing images all the time. Again, not to say, if you have the luxury of being able to block out the news, I'm not saying do that. I'm saying consume it in a way that does not annihilate your central nervous system. So that was a lot. I wanted to cover both of those. I'd love to know what your thoughts are about emotional safety and security. You can download the guide that I created for you and the beautiful guided meditation. I think you're going to love it at terricole.com/279. I love to hear from you. So drop me comments in all the places. If you're listening to it and you got something to say, put it in your story. I will repost it. It makes me feel so much less alone, knowing that you are all out there. And really, we are all in this together. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And as always, take care of you.